Thank you. Very happy to be here one more time in the sacred land of Lubbock. It's been, I think, about a couple of years since we talked about meditation. And always when I begin to talk about meditation and meditative exercise, I want to really distinguish between meditation and meditative exercises. Meditation is something that comes more at the end of the path, at the end of doing a lot of inner work that brings a certain degree of quietness in the mind. When thoughts die down and the hold of the reactive mind has decreased to a point where a certain degree of inwardness starts to function. So when one is in a meditative mind, you can be doing anything, and that quality of inwardness will be there. You could be driving, you could be cooking, you could be talking, and that quality of inwardness is there. You could be speaking and talking, but it's more out of silence than out of the reactive mind. You can speak out of the meditative mind. You can do anything out of the meditative mind. But it comes at the end of the journey, at the end of the path, or at the end of lifetimes of inner work. That's the real meaning of meditation. So when you talk about a saint meditating, you're talking about that kind of meditation. It's also the personal mind, the reactive mind, the separated mind, replaced by a different presence. You can call it, for ease, divine self, the non-ordinary self, the state of pure being, all that. When in spiritual books or books that point to the higher path, they talk about meditation, they're talking about that state. A meditative exercise, on the other hand, is an exercise that could either increase our powers of concentration or an exercise that gives depth to the mind, or any exercise that is a help in quieting down the constant movement of thoughts that are a result of the reactive mind. So, as long as the history of spiritual evolution, there's been some kind of meditation that has been taught. There's Buddhist techniques, there's Vedic techniques. You've heard of transcendental meditation. You've heard of Vipassana. There's a certain meditation called the meditation of light. The Vedic teachers call it the Jyoti meditation. All these exercises either give depth to the mind or in some way help the mind to become quieter. A meditative exercise pursued together with a whole inner movement to gain control of the lower self, ego, or bring the mind into control, bring order in life and to come to a state where a state of pure being can manifest. A life lived in concordance with that goal, a meditative exercise can be very helpful, because when you have depth in the mind, when you have greater understanding, then a certain degree of speed in the path comes, because you start to live by what you see, what you really understand, instead of having a blind faith in something. And when you live by your understanding, then it's different than if you follow something. So whenever I go into explaining the path, I try to bring about an understanding of the stages on the path. And those stages mark a progressive movement of control of the different bodies by the inner man. The Theosophists call those the four initiations. And the four initiations comprise a journey through lifetimes, about 10 lifetimes. And the longest period between initiations is between the first and second initiation. Because of the first initiation, a certain degree of control has come, just the physical body, or largely the physical body. So that such a person has no lower pulls, addictions that really hold this person back. But after taking the first initiation, the real main struggle is to overcome emotions as ego, which most of people that you'll find on the spiritual path are at that stage of understanding and transcending the pull of emotions. When that happens, most of the path is overcome. And it's only after that stage that the mind starts to become meditative. And the reason is that so much of our energy was drained by emotions, soap opera life, that we don't have any energy left. There is no quietness. There's pull in every direction. So much energy is available that the mind can begin to meditate. It's only at that stage that a natural meditation is possible. And from the second initiation to the third initiation, is the next really important stage of completely going beyond the reactive mind. Because even though the emotions have been controlled, there's still pull of ideas, mental ideas. The mind is still, reactive mind is still there. It's not as powerful, but it's still there. At the second initiation, it's like the whole thing shift 51% from the ego and the separative mind to the mind that is dominated by love and understanding, higher qualities. And at the third initiation, and these are people that are the foremost teachers that you find in the world. They have gone beyond the reactive mind completely. There are no movements, no pulls, no resistance, no fears. And at that stage is only when you can meditate at will. At the stage of the third initiation. Because the physical body, the emotion body, and the mental body, neither one of them creates any kind of a pull. And all the three are in the control of the inner man.
So you're saying that if we're still having our mind run and we're still having emotional states without controlling those, that we cannot at will meditate?
That is exactly
So
right.
even though you're sitting down to meditate and get yourself in a meditative state, unless you've overcome those two things, you cannot do that at will. Is that what you're saying?
You cannot do that as well. What you can do when you do a meditative exercise is a meditative exercise is basically an exercise in concentration.
Yes, okay,
Right?
all right.
And so you can, it's a practice.
Mhm.
And you know, you've heard teachers say that there's nothing in this world that will not yield to practice. So let's just talk, we'll come back to the meditative mind.
So you're talking about meditative practice is different than meditation at will?
Yes, meditation.
Okay, all right.
So let's talk a little bit about the meditative exercise. Let's take, there's a Vedic meditation on breathing, where you meditate on the inhaling breath as so, and the exhaling breath as hum. And you hear, as you breathe in, you hear the breath making the sound so, and as you breathe out, you hear the breath making the sound hum. Now, the exercise here would be that when you start the first day and you have your attention on Soham, the mind will wander. You're sitting down and doing Soham, you have a thought, oh, I'm meditating, this is going to be good for me, it's going to quieten my mind. You're not, your mind has wandered from your original thought, right? You're not dwelling on Soham, you're thinking. Now, as soon as you realize that you're thinking and you're not dwelling on Soham, what do? You can let the thinking go further and say, I shouldn't be thinking. If I keep thinking, I would not be meditating. And you're going further away from the meditative exercise. So what do? As soon as you realize that you're not on Soham, you immediately come back to Soham. 5 seconds later, you think of the rose you planted 2 days ago and what it's doing, or the alternator that you need to change in your car. Those are thoughts that may come. Again, are you going to say, I shouldn't be thinking about the alternator, I should be meditating? you're again thinking and not coming back to Soham. So immediately you come back to Soham. First day, you do, your mind wanders 1,000 times. 1 week later, your mind wanders 990 times. You made progress. You moved, further. Now, when we talk about meditation, people say, no, I don't want to meditate because I don't know how to meditate. Well, that's exactly why you need to learn to meditate. Because if you knew how to meditate, you wouldn't have to meditate as an exercise. You would be meditating. You'd be able to go into meditation at will. So again, on this thing of practice, really, if you continue with this practice of Soham, or whatever mantra or thing you choose, there's a teacher that has taught, and many of my friends have done this, just looking at the thumb with the same principle that I just shared. The mind wandered, you come back to the thumb. It doesn't matter what it is. And so you will find after some time that you have trained your mind through your practice to stay on this one thing. And what does that do? You will see whatever work you do, the same thing will start happening in your daily life. If you're a writer, you have more concentration because your mind is not wandering. But in the same way, if you're trying to understand your life and look at yourself and examine, I prefer not to use the word examine. It's just you're trying to pay attention to the workings of your mind. That attention will be more deeper and have more meaning once you have trained your mind to concentrate, meditate in this way. And so that really has meaning on the path of eventually coming to meditation, to meditate. We can talk about some other forms of meditation. There are some Buddhist meditations, and those, for instance, Vipassana, has to do with a technique, intense observation, and done under the guidance of a teacher. That can result in, dropping off many of the thoughts and false things that become part of your reactive mind, personal mind. Lots of new terms are coming. I saw a video on a non-duality conference, and they were trying to use different terms for this, you can call it ego. Sometimes I prefer to, because ego is very loaded and has a lot of different meanings. And basically, it is about the separated self. I've heard a man use the word conceptual self. And it's meaningful because that self is a sum total of concepts. Even the concept of your me is built within this whole psychological thought system of you. And through understanding, that separated me drops away. That is the goal of all spiritual endeavor. that the separated self drop away. Now you can ask, well, this is the only self we know, and this is the only self we relate to, and is it possible to live in this world without this ego and this separated self? But all teachers, all religions, as their highest goal, point to transcending this limited, separated self, ego, personal self, and it's replaced by something else. It's hard to understand by thinking what that self is. You can meditate on it and get a sense of it, because the separated self and the separated mind only builds images and projections. It just will create another image of it. It won't understand it. You have to understand it, because it's outside the range of your experience. How are you going to understand something? Because all that you know, or all that you are and think you are, is within the range of that separated self. So unless you've started to meditate with a quiet mind, you cannot get a sense of that self that's outside of time, psychological time, and outside of all this image building. We will do, at the end we will do a meditative exercise that's called light meditation, Jyoti meditation. And it's an ancient technique that uses several different principles. One of them is energy follows thought. Whatever you dwell on, you become. Whatever you dwell on, you draw its energy into you. So it uses light for that purpose. It also uses the principle that I explained earlier of the practice of dwelling on one thing to, bring depth and concentration in the mind. And another principle that it uses is that you visualize that light before you end the meditation in all beings. And in that way it helps destroy the separation, because it's all about the separation. I said earlier that all teachers, whether it's Buddha, Christ, Muhammad, or any teachers, they point to the same goal of the end of separation and to come to divine love. When Jesus said, perfect love casteth out fear, he's talking about the exact same thing as when Buddha said, when you have transcended desire, you come upon nirvana. Because the thought, fear as a thought, creates the separated mind, creates the psychological, reactive, personal self. And perfect love is the ending of separation. There cannot be personal love in fullness as long as there's a sense of separation. And in that state of perfect love is the fullness of meditation. When I say the ending of separation, it's not a thought or an idea. It is, as you might have heard of accounts of certain saints, like the teacher of Ram Dass, named Karoli Baba. Somebody would come to him and he would say, you were thinking this morning when you were coming in a bus to meet me, or you had this dream 2 days ago, or whatever they were thinking at the moment. It's not because they have some kind of a power. It's because in actual self they have no separation. And they know. They have direct knowledge. There is no division. So I'll come back a little bit more to the stages, the 4 stages of the path, and what lies at the different stages of the path.
You're talking about the stages of initiation?
F initiations. Before the path even begins, before one is initiated, it's a state of total self-absorption. It's love has a little or no place in life. It's only at the first initiation, that one even has a beginning sense of love. And inwardly one works at and struggles to bring emotions as ego under control. The mind at the present stage of evolution is 80% emotions. And that's why when those emotions are controlled, one has come nearly to the end of the path. According to the esoteric teachings, 1 or 2 lifetimes are left before one becomes totally free of the reactive mind and comes to a state of being.